It's 3:30 a.m. The Trans-Canada Highway through the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia is empty. Neil is making good time driving west towards Vancouver. The roads might be empty, but the sky is not. Neil notices something flickering in the sky. Its unusual flicker pattern and movement catches his eye, and he points out the object to his wife. His wife immediately feels strange. The lights, the patterns, the colors, it's the colors. She cannot describe them. She says that they do not exist. Neil drives along the curvy highway. The object darts between mountains at incredible speeds, making maneuvers impossible for an airplane or a helicopter. It's a UFO, he tells his wife. Fascinated, he drives onward, keeping an eye in the sky. But then, just as he meets the most treacherous part of his journey, cascading mountains, sheer cliffs, and no guardrails, he takes his eyes off the road. He simply stares up at the flickering object with colors and magnificent reflections he said were impossible. He drove that dark highway, known for its share of disaster, unscathed. He drove without thinking, he said. He just made the trip out of the mountains, always looking at the UFO. His wife was also simply staring at it. The trip was a 3-hour drive, but it felt like minutes. Neil drove without incident, even though his eyes weren't on the road. Once out of the Rocky Mountains and into a large valley where the road widened and straightened, the object that was darting about and following them simply vanished, zooming off beyond the horizon. Neil and his wife looked at each other. They knew what they saw. How could they explain this? Should they tell anyone? They drove on to their destination, but the event was so impossible to forget, and Neil's wife wanted answers. She called the police, and the RCMP said they would look into it. A day passed, and no officer arrived to take a report. So Neil's wife called the newspaper and the television station. They were both very much interested in the story, but then they came back with an answer for Neil and his wife. The UFO they saw? Well, it wasn't a UFO. They knew exactly what it was. The newspaper reporter indicated the object was a Russian spy plane. It was tracked by the military. And Neil and his wife should not speak of it anymore. Neil and his wife both agreed it could not have been anything of the sort. A Russian spy plane would have been intercepted long before it made its way into airspace between Vancouver and Banff. Besides, how did the newspaper man come to this conclusion? Did he call the military and they admitted we were penetrated by an enemy spy plane? When Neil's wife questioned the reporter, he simply said, "That's the story. If a Russian spy plane actually entered our airspace, that is a story. A little different than a UFO story, but still alarming enough to write about, is it not?" The reporter then said the incident is classified and the whole thing was now considered top secret. And that was that. If they would push for more answers, they could be in trouble. The reporter then hung up the phone. Neil and his wife felt strange about this encounter, but decided it was not worth the trouble to push it any further. Neil and his wife would tell this story to friends and family. Neil was convinced it was not a Russian spy plane, and he did in fact see something extraordinary. He could not explain how he drove through the Canadian Rockies without incident while staring up at a flickering object. His wife would later say that the experience had changed her and made her a believer in UFOs. She said, when she looked up and saw the brilliant colors that she could not describe, it felt good, warm, and wholesome. Again, she had trouble describing this feeling, but she said it felt like there was nothing scary about it, and for some reason it made her feel safe and calm. Neil reported never seeing anything like it before and since. His wife reports that she sometimes sees strange objects in the sky, but is unsure if they are actually UFOs. She reports this is the most profound thing she has seen in terms of UFOs. What do you think Neil and his wife saw and experienced? Do you believe the narrative that it was a Russian spy plane? Or did this couple experience something out of the ordinary? Have you had a similar experience? We would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to see videos just like this one. Until next time, keep an eye to the skies.